We continue to have high-level contacts with both in Pakistan and here to be able to express to them the importance that we attach to resolving this issue in this case. And we'll use every opportunity in our engagement with the Pakistani government to reiterate that position.
Still ahead, the far-reaching effects of Egypt's uprising. Find out why a trip on Hosni Mubarak's plane has led to a ban on foreign holidays for French ministers. Plus, the latest WikiLeaks release leads to speculation on the state of Saudi Arabia's oil reserves.
As a slight chill spreads across Melbourne, we'll find a way to perk you up.
Hello, after Wednesday morning's rain across parts of the Arabian Peninsula, here we go, this big bulge of cloud making its way out of the way. Drier, brighter skies coming in behind. Should be safe to clean the car then. We have got more in the way of clear sunshine, but notice temperatures pegged back to just 22 Celsius here in Doha. Similar values to come to into Riyadh, and I think we'll keep that slightly fresher feel to the weather as we go on through the next couple of days. Here's Friday's picture, similar values, little more clouds, so always a chance of the odd shower up towards the Gulf, but I think for many it will stay fine and dry. You can see the wetter weather is easing its way across Iran. Once again, we will see some wintry flurries making the way over the higher ground of Afghanistan. Quite a bit of snow a possibility here, and also into parts of Pakistan. Much of India is fine and dry. We are still very concerned, of course, across the southernmost parts of the Bay of Bengal into Sri Lanka, where we have got further flooding rains to come over the next day or so. But I'm pleased to say that wetter weather is easing its way further south. We come into South Africa, some showers there just around the Eastern Cape. Heavy downpours still a possibility into Mozambique, into southern parts of Tanzania. We will see further heavy rain too, once again into Madagascar. Zambia could also see some flooding, and it stays pretty wet too for a good part of Angola.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
As Washington's allies stumble one after the other, exposed, losing control and influence, powerless in the face of the people's power, we ask, is this the dawn of a new Middle East? Empire at this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back to Top Stories on Al Jazeera. Italian prosecutors are demanding Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi go on trial immediately. The call follows allegations he paid for sex with a 17-year-old Moroccan dancer and then used his political power to cover it up. Tension is running high between the U.S. and Pakistan after an American shot and killed 2 armed men he claimed were trying to rob him. Anti-U.S. protests have been underway in Lahore since the incident took place nearly 2 weeks ago. Reports say transport workers will join the mass strikes taking place across Egypt. Pro-democracy protests in Cairo have now entered their 17th day. All this comes as negotiators meet to discuss the future transition of power. The French President Nicolas Sarkozy has banned members of his cabinet from holidaying abroad. It follows revelations that his Prime Minister and Foreign Minister recently went on free vacations in crisis-hit North African countries. Rory Challens has more.
Prime Minister Francois Fillon would probably like to escape France at the moment. So too would Foreign Minister Michel Alliot-Marie. The problem is that's exactly what's got them both into trouble. Monsieur Fillon took his family on holiday to the Nile resort of Aswan, courtesy of Egypt's unpopular President Hosni Mubarak. And Madame Alliot-Marie is facing calls to resign for flying on a private plane to Tunisia for holidays. That plane owned by a businessman with alleged ties to ousted leader Ben Ali. With pictures like these coming daily from the Middle East, it was very bad timing for the politicians. The French media has had a field day, painting the two as cozying up to despots and autocrats.
How comes that the French foreign minister and the French prime minister were going to these countries at this very moment when, in the case of Tunisia, the repression and the revolt had already started, and at a time when one could imagine that the French diplomacy was aware that there was a risk of contagion.
But the Prime Minister insists he's done nothing wrong.
J'ai respecté strictement toutes les règles.
I have strictly respected all the rules related to private trips abroad for the Prime Minister, as well as the President of the Republic.
But even if no rules were broken, President Sarkozy knows this looks bad, and new guidelines have been issued.
Pour leurs vacances, désormais, les membres du gouvernement.
For the holidays, from now on, members of the government will have to prioritize France. Invitations abroad will be authorized by the Prime Minister, in agreement with the diplomatic sections of the French presidency.
Some, though, might question the wisdom of putting the Prime Minister, one of the culprits here, in charge of preventing any further embarrassments. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
Former Liberian President Charles Taylor has boycotted his war crimes trial at The Hague for the second day running. The proceedings have now been adjourned while the judges decide whether to allow an appeal by Taylor's legal team. His lawyers are angry that a defense document has been ruled inadmissible. Taylor denies 11 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity during the Sierra Leone civil war in the 1990s. 1 month after she was shot in the head at point-blank range, a U.S. congresswoman is regaining her speech. Gabrielle Giffords' doctors say she's now speaking, quote, more and more. She was set to be alert on Monday morning, even requesting a change to her breakfast. Giffords was injured during January's mass shooting in Arizona, which left 6 people dead. Well, Republicans in the U.S. are making it very clear how serious they are about cutting back on government spending. They've released a list of more than 60 programs they want to see slashed. This comes as President Barack Obama prepares to send the 2012 budget to the Congress next week. Here's John Terrett.
In Washington, all the talk is about the 2012 budget and the battle now ramping up over cuts versus spending to boost economic growth. The Republican Party, which runs the House of Representatives, is laying out plans for deep cuts in social programs, from health and education to transport and law enforcement, affecting millions of Americans.
Clearly, our number one issue is getting the economy going again and getting people back to work. And we believe that in order for that to happen, that we need to cut spending. We need to stop unnecessary regulation that's hampering small businesses' ability to hire people.
President Obama must wrestle between cutbacks to appease the Republicans and efforts to boost the underperforming U.S. economy, which will entail some spending. On his budget radar, plans to help cash-strapped U.S. states that have borrowed billions from the federal government to cover soaring unemployment benefits by freezing their interest rate payments for 2 years. Republicans see this as a massive government spend. The president insists it's necessary to stimulate growth. On Wednesday, the head of the U.S. Central Bank, Ben Bernanke, told the now Republican-controlled House Budget Committee there may be signs of optimism, but a lack of jobs growth is still a big problem.
Until we see a sustained period of stronger job creation, we cannot consider the recovery to be truly established.
That lack of jobs growth is hurting the president's approval ratings. A new poll shows President Obama gets low marks from Americans for the way he's dealing with the economy. The Gallup survey shows only 37% approve, while a whopping 60% disapprove. Global economic woes have their roots in the U.S. housing market, and bailing out 2 giants of the industry, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, cost taxpayers billions of dollars. As the 2012 budget details begin to leak, it's clear the Obama administration is set on cutting them loose so that never again will the government have to step in as it did in the aftermath of the collapse in 2008-2009. The president may send his budget to the Congress next week, but as usual in the U.S. system, arguing over its finer points may take more than a year to play out. John Terrett, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Saudi Arabia's oil reserves aren't as big as people think. Well, that's according to the latest U.S. diplomatic cables released from WikiLeaks. American officials are apparently very concerned about how much the country actually has and how that will impact on the price of oil. Imran Khan reports.
Selling the dream, from ancient desert to modern refinery, the image the Saudis want you to see is clear. A world leader in oil production. the world's largest oil exporter and a key player in controlling what we pay at the petrol pump. But cracks are beginning to emerge in this carefully controlled image. According to leaked diplomatic cables from the US Embassy in Riyadh, one senior oil executive has cast serious doubt over Saudi Arabia's oil capacity. To encourage investment and confidence, you need a credible system of telling the world exactly how much oil you can access. Officially, Saudi Arabia says it has 716 billion barrels of oil in reserve. Not so, says Sadat al-Husseini, a former senior oil executive quoted in the US diplomatic cables. He says they're overselling oil reserves by as much as 40%. That's a massive drop. The US is clearly worried. Saudi is one of its biggest oil providers. If proved true, its impact on oil prices could be profound. The more you pump and get on the market, the cheaper oil becomes. For investors, knowing exactly how much Saudi oil there is crucial. Reserves then become critical in predicting oil prices. Saudi Arabia finds itself with a problem. More and more oil experts are beginning to question Saudi reserves. That could have an impact globally. Any downgrading of Saudi reserves would send oil prices up. That's a nightmare scenario for a world dependent on oil. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera.
Security is tight in Indonesia. That's ahead of the latest trial of the Muslim cleric Abu Bakr Bashir. More than 1,000 police have been deployed near the courthouse in South Jakarta. Bashir's supporters are expected to hold a rally outside. It's the cleric's third trial on terrorism-related charges in a decade. Thailand and Cambodia will present their argument over a border dispute at the United Nations next week. Both countries blame each other for damage to an ancient Hindu temple located at the center of recent military clashes. At least 11 people have died in the fighting and thousands have fled their homes.
Last night, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon rang me and he said, these are armed clashes. I said, no, this is war. So Cambodia is asking the UN Security Council to call an immediate meeting on that.
Talks between the North and South Korean military have broken down, and neither side could agree on the agenda for future discussions. Tensions have been high on the peninsula since the North shelled a South Korean island in November, killing 4 people. Hundreds of opposition supporters have taken to the streets of Sri Lanka to protest against rising food prices.